Welcome in. I'm the Kodiak, and today we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl that transpired 2 days ago between the Buccaneers and Chiefs. And this was the first time since September that I actually got to watch live football on a Sunday because I've worked every Sunday since late September. So it was actually very special for me to watch this game. I don't know. But for the game itself, as I'm sure you know by now, I'm sure I don't have to be making a video to help you guys analyze the game or anything, but yeah, Kansas City just got boat raced from start to finish. I know they jumped out to that early lead, and I know that everybody is wants to talk about those wishy-washy calls, which weren't good calls. Some of them were pretty bad, but let's be honest, Kansas City does not win that game, even if those calls don't go Tampa's way, just because they got flat out dominated in every aspect. I have no idea how they made it this far because I said in my playoff prediction video that I was not buying Kansas City. Definitely don't think Mahomes is overrated or anything, but I do think the Chiefs as a team were completely overrated. Down the stretch, they had absolutely no running game. I know part of that was because CEH got hurt and they decided for whatever reason to sign Le'Veon Bell. And I know CEH did have a big run or two this game. He had, I believe, 2 runs over 20 yards. But other than that, they just really couldn't get anything going all playoffs, especially tonight, and it showed out. Listen, the Buccaneers had the best run defense in the league this year. Kansas City was the worst rushing offense, partially because CEH got hurt, partially because they mismanaged assets and accidentally signed, or I'm not going to say accidentally, but egregiously signed Le'Veon Bell. We're without Fisher and Schwartz for this game. Schwartz is an all-pro right tackle. Fisher is a good left tackle. When you're missing both your tackles and you're playing with a entirely different O-line combination, it's just going to spell disaster against Tampa's front. They got away with it all year, but they were winning games by a margin of like 4 points every single time. They got super lucky down the stretch, and yeah, I just thought as a team they were completely overrated. Pretty much getting bailed out by Patrick Mahomes every time. And their defense, I mean, they're one of those defenses that's you look at it and you say, well, it's not that good, but they will show out every now and then. Like they'll show out against one bad teams. They remind me of other defenses that show up at home, but they also showed up against Buffalo. They pressured Josh Allen at a rate of 47% in the AFC Championship game on his dropbacks. Pretty good, but they just did not have an answer for Rojo, and they certainly do not have an answer for Fournette. Every time Rojo or Fournette got the ball, I literally thought they were going to pick up a first down. This is the game plan you need to beat the Chiefs. You need to just grind clock over and over again. And with grinding clock comes running the football. I think it's been like 4 or 5 years we could actually look at the Chiefs defense and say, oh, it's good. Not it's mediocre, because, I mean, it is mediocre, but they didn't have an answer for Rojo. And everyone in the AFC West knows, like, I'm a Broncos fan. We all knew that the Chiefs' defensive backfield was very touchy, very clingy. And I'm not surprised they got flagged, like, literally every play because they are a very physical unit. They like to put their hands on the receivers. But the Buccaneers' wideout core just was too much for them to handle. They were just flat out overmatched. And I completely forgot about the fact that they had that goal line stand just because of how the rest of the game, turned out. But that goal line stand led to a dropped punt and then a shanked punt by their rookie punter. Short and sweet, this was like the greatest thing in the world for me to watch because living in Denver, there's no team I've grown to despise more in the last 5 years or so than Kansas City. Half of that is jealousy, half of that is just me being petty. So this was awesome for me to watch, especially seeing Shaq Barrett get that ring. The right side of the offensive line just could not keep up with him, and I love that he was wearing number 58 for Miller. And Devin White showed out too. Pre-draft, a lot of people were saying that, you should never take an inside linebacker 5th overall. Or not that you shouldn't take one, but that there had never been an inside linebacker taken as high as Devin White. We all knew he had a sky-high ceiling, and he realized that ceiling. Levante David and that entire linebacking core had an incredible game. Kelsey was always just going to be too much of a mismatch nightmare in some cases. And also, I'm not even going to talk about those sidearm throws or those 2 back-to-back plays where Mahomes was literally sideways, because that's just Jameis Winston-esque. At that point, it was fuck it and chuck it. And I'm just over here like, His team is down by 22 points. The thing that would have impressed me more than those being completed is actually being able to keep up with Tampa on offense and defense. So let's talk about Tampa. Last year with Bruce Arians and Jameis Winston threw for 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 30 interceptions. This was great for fantasy. This was fun football to watch, but it's not good for actually winning games. And then Jameis Winston signs a 1-year contract with the Saints and ends up firing his agent over it. I think Taysom is the starter in New Orleans in 2021, and I don't think they're going to be able to re-sign Jameis based on their current cap situation. But Jameis football is actually really fun to watch, and if he gets a chance to shine with the Saints, that could make for some great television. Tom Brady is just one of those guys who they kept talking about it on the broadcast. It was like when Peyton Manning went to Denver, Tom Brady just completely elevated everyone around him. And I didn't think the Buccaneers were good enough to win the Super Bowl, even mid-season, even towards the end of the year. I thought they got completely bow-raced by the Saints. I thought the fact that they got completely dominated by the Saints twice made me believe that they weren't even the best team in their own division. And that Sunday night football game against the Saints was the best thing that ever could have happened to them. It made them take a big, long look in the mirror and say, okay, we are not doing these things. We got completely outcoached. We're going to see how we can turn this around. And from there on out, they kind of catered more to Brady's style. Arians is a very deep ball-minded head coach, but Brady has just never been that guy who just chucks it deep every single play throughout his career. We all know that Brady has made a living off the short to medium passes and dinking and dunking and just committing zero mistakes. That was New England Patriots football for an entire generation. And with AB, I'm not going to say Gronk anymore because he's injured to hell, but with Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin, Brady was low-key having a disappointing season, but he clutched up. He ended up winning the Buccaneers some games. And tonight, he literally could have done absolutely nothing and won the Buccaneers the Super Bowl. Is he the best quarterback of all time? Probably. But this game doesn't convince me for better or for worse. I can't look at this game and say that he was the reason they won. My vote for MVP would have been Devin White or Shaq Barrett. Also, can we talk about Leonard Fournette? Leonard Fournette was cut by the worst team in the league this year. Goes from barely seeing the field to actually completely outperforming Rojo. And for Fournette's career, he has been a massive bust for the most part. Drafting a running back high is pretty much always a bad idea. And Jacksonville completely flushed a 4th overall pick in 2017 down the drain on Fournette because he wasn't that good. People could look at his 2019 season and say, oh, 1,600 scrimmage yards. But that was off of the 3rd most touches in the league. And it doesn't matter that he got all those touches because he was wildly inefficient. And the Jaguars were not a good team in 2019 because of that. Hell, you could argue it got even worse for Jacksonville despite the fact that James Robinson is a better player. Their philosophy going into this year was, okay, we found this running back off the street. We are going to give him all the touches, and if he dies, he dies. Rojo did have a good year, but he was mostly an unproven player entering this year. So now that Fournette's out of the way, let's talk about AB and Gronk. AB was literally kicked out of the NFL, and the talent was still there, and they literally got him for free, and Tom Brady has proven that he absolutely loves Antonio Brown. I have no idea what made Antonio Brown go from literally mentally insane to keeping relatively quiet. Onto Gronk, he's completely washed, and you can't really convince me any other way. But he was a good security blanket this year, and he's definitely not what he used to be. But considering the fact that he's 60 or 70% of what prime Gronk was, that's still an average to good tight end. And Todd Bowles' game plan was just absolutely unbelievable. I think Tampa Bay getting smoked by New Orleans and getting smoked by Tyreek Hill in Week 12 was the best thing that could have happened at this team. Because when the rematches finally rolled around, they were able to make adjustments, and they were able to just completely dominate an offense that we've seen just completely obliterate other teams for the past few years. So what does this mean going forward? For Tampa, I'm not really sure. Tampa will be a very hard team to gauge in the offseason because we're going to look at them and say, can they do it again? And Brady wants to keep playing. If this team can keep giving him help like they have. They were already a good team before Brady got there. It just turns out that Jameis Winston was holding them back. But for the Chiefs, I think this means something a little larger. Patrick Mahomes' contract has not kicked in yet. It is completely backloaded, and in year, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's going to ramp up to those ridiculous price tags. But listen, we have already seen the peak of the Kansas City Chiefs. They can't get much better. It's harder for an offense to get much better than they already are. The thing the Chiefs need most is O-line help. They used a first-round pick on a running back last year because they felt it would put them over the top. It turns out that even one of the best, most explosive offenses we have ever seen can fall victim to taking a running back in the first round, which is always a terrible idea, considering the fact that they could have used something that could help their run game even more than a running back, which sounds weird to say, but they could have gotten an interior offensive lineman. Or we knew that Jeff Gladney was their guy, and considering you're going to have Mahomes, you're going to be ahead more often than not. One of the ideas was it could be better for them to invest in a pass defense because when teams are behind, they're going to have to throw more against the Chiefs, and if their pass defense was really good, it could help them neutralize the other team. But as it turns out, they have a few holes that need to be addressed. And all year, like I said, I thought the Kansas City Chiefs were a fraudulent team. I thought they got completely lucky that they played the garbage teams and won by the margins of victory that they did, and that it didn't catch up to them sooner than later. And it turns out I was completely right. It turns out that Buffalo was just even more fraudulent than KC was. This game was a glimpse of Mahomes' career if he was drafted by Chicago. He had literally no help. All three phases of the game, the Chiefs were just flat out overmatched. Going forward, it is completely up to the Chiefs to determine how they build around Patrick Mahomes. They got completely dominated this game, and I'm not sure what they could do to become much better on offense than they already are, besides take O-line in the first round of the draft. Will they go offense? Will they go defense? I'm not completely sure. But the Chiefs are mortal, and I think the gap is going to close when Mahomes' extension kicks in, because Mahomes' extension is going to kick in a few years, and they're not going to have as much money to invest in other areas of the team. That's going to do it for the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're not already, follow me on Twitter, link is in the description below. Anyways, guys, have a good day, and peace out.